Hiya, good morning. Welcome to my Compound Life. This is a channel where we build assets, we build habits, and we build freedom. And that should really be financial freedom as well as time freedom for you and I. So thanks for watching my video. And I'm Jonathan. Jonathan, by the way. So if you haven't already done so, please hit the like. Even if you don't like my video, just hit the like, hit subscribe, and become my subscribers. Let me know in the comments who you are. I think I'm only on 26 subs so far, so it would be good if you guys can bring me up to about 30 subscribers very soon. Okay, I really appreciate that. So this is a daily Bitcoin video. It is the 18th of December around 9:30 a.m. in the morning from time of recording. Bitcoin price is at around 87,100 right now. Huge movement over the past 24 hours, and we'll dive into it right now. So looking at the fear and greed index right now, we are still at the extreme fear. So not very good. I think over the past 24 hours with so much liquidation long and short in such a small tiny period of time, right? It's really frightening for many people. But at the same time, it does have a lot more opportunity, which we'll get into it in just a moment. So watch the full video. And I mean, so far, we are at extreme fear 18. I don't think we will have much improvement until maybe tomorrow, right? So I think based on some of the news about to come out, the CPI data, the Bank of Japan rate increase, it's going to be a very interesting weekend, because usually in the past, the weekend, it will usually lead to Bitcoin pump. However, ever since the October 10th liquidation event, it does seem every weekend leads to more dumps on Bitcoin. So we'll see how that goes. A quick look in terms of the ETF, Bitcoin ETFs, Ethereum ETF, as well as SOL ETF. What are they doing? On the 17th of December, that is yesterday's data, it was bullish with about $457 million worth of ETF buying on Bitcoin. Major buyer includes Fidelity as well as BlackRock, right? So far, I mean, we had a Wednesday. No, well, we had a Wednesday buy, so bullish Wednesday, bearish Tuesday, 277 million sell off for ETF outflow, and then a bearish Monday with 357 million outflow. Okay, so on a weekly basis, so far, that's with half of the week's data. So far, we are at around $177 million worth of outflow for Bitcoin. Compared to last week was in a better situation. It was more bullish with an inflow of $286 million, right? So if we continue to stock up, if retail continue to stock up in terms of ETF, I think we may close the week with slightly positive or net neutral inflows or outflows. Okay, so we'll see. And in terms of Ethereum, so far, 17th of December, yesterday's data, it was bearish. Okay, it was a sell of outflow of 22 million. Okay, Wednesday 22 million outflow. Tuesday 224 million outflow, and Monday also 224 million outflow. So Ethereum, I think the only person that's buying Ethereum right now, it's just Tom Lee. That's it, right? Everyone's out just selling. So usually, if Bitcoin cannot hold, very likely the big caps, the crypto altcoins, whatever you like to call it, the big caps, Ethereum, Solana, you tend to see more sell off soon after. So Ethereum has been quite bearish, but let's have a quick look in terms of their weekly performance. So far for Ethereum weekly performance, let me quick look. Ethereum for this week, Monday until Wednesday data, we have outflow of 471 million. Okay, so it does seem Ethereum is getting more bearish. In comparison to last week, it was actually positive of inflow of $208 million. Okay, so 471 million outflow versus 208 million inflow. So whatever inflow that we have had last week, we have completely wiped that off, and we kind of doubled that too, right? So not great for Ethereum. And for Solana, as of yesterday, 17th of December, interestingly enough, Solana remained quite strong. The SOL ETF, SOL ETF, it's remained at $11 million inflow, right? So Solana has essentially just been getting more inflow than outflow, to be honest. If we look through Solana's weekly, I think Solana weekly, so far for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, for the past 2 months, it has all been positive inflow. So for this specific week, we are at around $49 million inflow versus last week at $37 million, right? So, and the week before it was at only 20.3 million. Okay, so in a way we can say Solana is gaining more strength in the past 3 weeks, but certainly Solana had definitely been stronger. So the week commencing 28th of November, for that specific week, Solana actually had a stronger inflow of $108 million in comparison to right now $49 million, which is essentially half of that. And the week on the 21st of November, it also had another $128 million inflow, right? So definitely things were better before, but certainly we are seeing Solana picking up, so that's good, right? So let's look into Bitcoin news generally, right? So right now Bitcoin is trading at around 87,300 from the time of recording. So it does seem it's trading at between 86 to 87,000, but certainly there has been ups and downs for sure for the past 24 hours. I think it will remain pretty choppy for the coming few days until the weekend, and then we'll see whether it's going to be a weekend pump or dump. But certainly price went up near about 90,000-ish in the past 24 hours. So the peak of it was around 90,298 US dollar. That was at around 3 p.m. yesterday in the UK time, right? But of course, I think as a recap, right, price action isn't great at all, despite the fact that we've got a tiny little improvement over the past 24 hours, because certainly Bitcoin did drop from the high of 126,000, from the October high. Okay. But I just want to quickly cover what moved the price in the past 24 hours, right? I think number one, there has been so much heavy manipulation, right, going on. So daily pattern, I think some of you also may have spotted, there is always a dump or pump at around 10 a.m. in the US time. So essentially that would be kind of like the 2 p.m. our time, right? 2:30 p.m., 3 p.m., etc., right? So what happened yesterday was, at that 10, well, at that 3 p.m. US time, Bitcoin pumped from 87,000 or low-ish of 87, 87,000 back to about, 90,000, right? So the low-ish of 87 to about 90,000. And that was pretty like from 2:30 until about 3 o'clock our time, okay? And then immediately within 1 hour time, by about 4:30, it went back to its low of 86,000, right? So what that really showcases just heavy manipulation, because there are no news, no macro data coming from any data sources, etc., right? So one might also argue that, there could potentially be a war going with Venezuela, but it's not fully concrete. It's if there is a war news, right, probably it should go way down as opposed to immediately shoots up, right? So there has been a lot of on-chain analysis that actually look into who's heavily buying and who's heavily selling in that short burst of time, and it's actually indeed the exchanges as well as the market makers. Okay, so this is why there has been some conclusion that market makers are essentially just trying to make money off here and there, liquidating longs and shorts in a very, very short period of time. Usually as soon as the US market opens, they just do this for about 1 hour, liquidate everyone, and then try to profit from there. So in the past 24 hours, right, I think up to 400 million across major exchanges in terms of US dollars were liquidated, right? So long versus short breakdown, I think they were liquidating predominantly the longs. Approximately for Bitcoin, approximately 140 million in total were liquidated. That's across shorts and long, right? You can essentially see how market makers, exchanges, they pump up the price so much, and then immediately they dump, so they're taking out shorts, and then immediately, once traders, leverage traders, hopefully that's not you, and that's not me, I just buy spot, right? So as soon as leverage traders, they see that, oh, Bitcoin is coming back, this is the time, this is our time now to long, right? Everyone starts piling in the long, and that's when market makers starts to take out of the long. They start to sell at around 90K, so no one can escape in that short period of time, right? Not good. And of course, Ethereum, I think there were about 250 million liquidated. Of course, again, heavily skewed towards long liquidation, so not great. Okay, another thing that can also cause the sharp sell-off, also from a bit of news from China. So China selling off big time. China brought back strict mining rules in some area, I think specifically in Xinjiang area. They're shutting energy companies, powers, etc. And I think up to about 400,000 mining rigs were confiscated. So the hash rate definitely dropped by approximately 8%. So this forces miners to sell Bitcoin fast to cover costs, plus Asian old holders exiting, right? Because I think many holders that have accumulated Bitcoin for a decent amount of time, they don't want to take more risks anymore, right? Because there will essentially be just more downside versus upside as the 4 years Bitcoin cycle, it's coming to an end. And I think if people still follow that strictly, they know that, it's definitely time to de-risk, right? So that's why there has been a lot more Asian or Chinese sell-off. So overall, I think that this is why we kind of felt, we can see from the Bitcoin pricing, it is kind of weak, even with a bunch of Bitcoin getting bought up by the US, right? So fast supply hit market now, but certainly the sell-off, it's just brutal, right? But of course, the bright side, once this selling stops or slows, right, price can recover quite strong. And usually for Bitcoin, it recovers quite quickly, as well as for crypto. There will be 15, 20, 30% improvement in terms of pricing. But it's just that we are going through this period and we simply just have to be strong, right? I think overall, China sell-off, it's just short-term bearish. But overall, I think we'll definitely be longer-term bullish because, it's kind of like supply cleanup, getting rid of the weak hands, and, we'll get back in track pretty soon. Okay, so there are a few macro news today. I think today and tomorrow will be ultra important. Okay, so CPI news comes out today. Yes, big CPI data coming out today. So US CPI data for November 2025 will come out sometime at around 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. That will be about 1:30 p.m. our time. Okay, so this is the inflation number everyone waits for, especially this time because October data missed due to government shutdown. So report looks a bit different. No full months to months change for some parts, right? So what we expect, headline CPI oil prices around 3.1% higher than last year. Core CPI without food and energy data, about 3 to 3.1%. Inflation still sticky, higher than Fed's 2% target. So market now looks pretty nervous because if hotter, right, if data is hotter, then expect bad thing for risk asset like Bitcoin and a lot of the growth stocks, etc. Right? So the whole market situation seems pretty bearish because I think Oracle had some issue, so it's leading on to a lot of the AI stocks and shares to drop for this week. And then market overall sentiment, if share price starts to drop, it's also having some implication on Bitcoin too, right? So how does this CPI data will affect Bitcoin? Well, CPI big for Bitcoin because it changed Fed's rate plans, right? So lower or soft inflation, Fed cuts rate more. More money flow to risk asset like Bitcoin and growth stocks, which will lead, all of such riskier assets price to go up. But certainly, a hotter inflation means less cuts or even rate cut pause. Strong dollar, result in stronger dollar, so that's when people buy less riskier assets. And of course, Bitcoin down short term. So history show Bitcoin jumps on, cool CPI, and really, it drops on hot CPI data. So today market, I think everyone's just waiting and see. This is why Bitcoin is still, retracing between 86 to 87. Very likely, market maker will do something, right? It's kind of like their opportunity. If data comes out good, they'll try to liquidate long and short. And even if data comes out bad, right? CPI hot data, market maker will also liquidate longs and shorts. So don't get into leverage trading, right? Unless you can really take on the volatility, unless you have plenty of ammunition to take on that risk. Okay, so overall on CPI and Bitcoin, just need to watch closely today at around 3:30 p.m. At around 1:30 p.m. And of course, CPI data. Watch closely what market makers might do. Then we decide, what's our next move. Okay. By the way, I think I'll also be creating another video because I think here's kind of like a quick teaser for my next video. So hit the like, hit subscribe, because specifically the Fed's latest December 2025 speech, and like Jerome Powell's stance on what he might want to do, right, suggests there might be no more rate cut in 2026. Maybe they could just be one more at best. Okay, so with sticky inflation and strong growth, right? So I think Fed are seeing that inflation are definitely rising, right? Although Donald Trump wants a mid-year election to look good with market doing exceptionally better, right? But look at it this way: the equity market already performing, already all-time high, right? And there's so much more risk for the Fed to reduce the rate and to pile in more liquidity into the market, right? So there could be an expectation, right? Everyone are expecting, like you holders, Bitcoin holders, we are all expecting a rate cut, but rate cut might not at all be coming, right? So that means liquidity might still be tightened. Okay, so I'm not trying to spread FUDs here, right? But it's more for you to take into consideration. Even without rate cut, right? So in that next video, I want to specifically look into, even without rate cut, liquidity could still flood into Bitcoin anyway, right? That's through some sort of stealth channel, like the January ESLR bank easing and treasury reinvestments, right? So gold already saw this, and it's front running this, right? And I'll explain exactly how it works in the next full video coming soon. So hit the like, hit subscribe, so you don't miss that out. Okay. Of course, apart from CPI data that could potentially indicate whether the U.S. Fed will apply a rate cut in the coming January, right? Which, to be honest, I think in terms of the current Bitcoin price is already reflecting that. So pretty much, it's pretty much priced in. Okay. Another thing that will affect the Bitcoin price immediately, well, almost immediately, will probably be the Bank of Japan rate decision. I think that's coming out today or tomorrow. Yes, we are all expecting a rate hike of 0.75%. I think this is pretty much being reflected on the Bitcoin price, but very certainly, for most certainty, I think once it's been confirmed, there will be more Bitcoin price going downwards. Okay, essentially with rate hike, this makes the Japanese yen stronger, which will lead to the carry trades unwind, where people borrow cheap yen to buy Bitcoin. They'll have to, sell off their Bitcoin to pay back the loans, right? They don't want to take that risk anymore. So in the past, every Bank of Japan hike caused Bitcoin price to drop 20 to 30%, right? So I'm kind of thinking maybe it's not going to drop another 20 to 30% from current 87,000. Maybe it might drop another 10 to 15%. Okay, but essentially it does seem Bitcoin in the short term may fall to about $70,000 per Bitcoin. Okay, so that's something to look out for, right? So if you do have some cash on hand, maybe it's good to pound cost average in to buy more. But certainly, for most certainty, this will not be the time to sell right now. So do not panic sell right now after listening to my YouTube, or after looking at the price action at 70,000, and especially when you got into Bitcoin at around 89,000, 90,000, 100,000, or even 110,000, right? Or even higher at 120,000. This will not be the time to sell, right? So there will be more bullish news coming. But having said that, we always need to be more conservative now, because we seem to be heading into a Bitcoin bear market pretty soon. But this time around, the bear market will not be long. It will be pretty short, and hopefully, I think by maybe when liquidity starts pouring in towards end of next year, we should probably be getting out of the bear market. Okay, so at worst, you'll be holding a non-performing bag for another year or so. We're in November already, and the recovery for all of this can potentially be next year, Q4. Okay, so I know not the best thing you want to hear, but potentially that could, be how long you might need to hold on to your non-performing bag. I know it's brutal, right? Because gold performed, even silver performed too. I mean, everything performed. Stocks and shares perform. S&P 500, grandpa's asset perform. Everything performed except for Bitcoin and crypto. I know it's brutal, but this is one of the year that we just anticipate Bitcoin to not perform, and leading onto all crypto assets not perform, but it will return. Okay. Any other news? I think some UK news, right, could cause a little bit of excitement for you British viewers out there, which, by the way, I don't think there are a lot of British viewers. I think everyone just dislike investment in general, or by the time it even gets to Bitcoin investment, people would be like, no, 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 don't tell me it's all Ponzi, right? But it's not Ponzi, okay? So here's the news, listen out, okay? UK government is pushing new crypto rules to start fully in 2027. So they want to regulate Bitcoin and others like normal stocks with more protection for people and clear rules. I think they want to do that just because HMRC is desperate to collect more taxes. Okay, so that's why they're doing it. Crypto ownership in the UK dropped to about 8 to 12% this year. First fall in years, right? So where are you guys, the Bitcoin bros, the crypto bros, right? I think with so much uncertainty, in generally, I just felt people in the UK are, people all everywhere, right? Because I recently returned from China. It does seem people in Asia, people in the UK, people in Europe, no one are making a lot of money, because of liquidity tightening. Government just want to tax the hell out of everyone. We simply don't have much spare cash lying around anymore, right? So hence it makes total sense that Bitcoin crypto ownership in the UK dropped by about 8 to 12%. But everyone's are hoping that liquidity are coming back, so that can potentially, bring this level of adoption in the UK higher next year, right? So this year, I think market is just spook, and no one wants it anymore for now. So I do have hopes that you British people that are watching my video right now, you guys will be buying more Bitcoin very, very soon, be it for Bitcoin through exchange or through one of them Bitcoin ETP, ETN, ETF, whatever, right? So I anticipate more smart money coming in, pouring in. So if you haven't already done so, hit the like, hit subscribe. There's another video that I've made yesterday specifically looking into the cohorts of who are actually buying Bitcoin. And very likely this individual, they're not you and I retail buying through exchanges, right? This will be the family offices, the high net worth individual, or the ultra high net worth individual, right? So essentially we are going through a period of changing hands, wealth changing hands, wealth changing from ordinary retail investors like you and I that got spooked by the market, that panic sold, exchanging hands to the more wealthier, because obviously they've got more money. They can constantly buy more dips, and these are dips that are caused by you and I, right? Who panic sold. Okay, so bear that in mind. I think overall for UK it's a good setup. It's not going to be game changing, not as if UK going to cause a lot of ups and downs on the Bitcoin price, but at least for adoption level, you get more adoption in the UK, and it's very important because this is why I started the channel, My Compound Life, just so that more of you guys can get into asset class that outperform inflations, right? Asset class that can help you to aggregate more wealth in a much more shorter period of time, right? I used to think properties were like the best of assets to invest after reading Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. But now, it is helping me to pay off my asset. Bitcoin is helping me to pay off my other assets, and to get to a financial free status. Okay, so I want you guys to be able to do that too. I think that's it for today. Overall, today feels tense with Bitcoin at around 86, 87K. But I do anticipate bigger news coming out, CPI, Bank of Japan rate hike. It's going to be volatile for the next couple of days, and we'll see whether it swings higher or lower over the weekend. Yeah, so something to look out for. And that's it for today. Hit the like, hit subscribe, become my 27th to 30th subscriber. Write in the comments, let me know who you are. Thanks for watching.